Okay, so you want to be able to like keep up in an English conversation, right?
Yeah.
But it feels like your brain just can't quite move fast enough. Well, we've taken this awesome conversation between these English learning pros, Jason and Julia, and pulled out the best strategies they shared
Yeah.
for like thinking faster and being able to just respond more naturally and quickly in English.
Absolutely.
So our deep dive today is all about basically how to train your brain to think in English. Because the big thing is you can learn a ton of vocabulary and grammar rules.
Yeah.
But if you're still kind of stuck translating everything in your head before you speak, it's going to be like a constant roadblock to that like really natural, smooth fluency that we're all after. All right?
Yeah, you're totally right. I mean, like, think about it. Someone could have a pretty impressive vocabulary, a really solid understanding of English grammar. But when it actually comes down to like a real live conversation,
Yeah.
it's like everything just kind of freezes up, right?
It does.
And that's really what we're going to like dig into here, how to get past that whole translating thing and actually start thinking in English directly.
Right. So first of all, why is this whole thinking fast thing so important? I mean, isn't it mainly just about like knowing enough words?
Well, I mean, vocabulary is obviously like the building blocks, right?
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, the real key to fluency is all about how fast you can process and use the language in your mind.
Okay.
Like imagine someone asks you a question in English, like Jason and Julia used this example. What did you do last weekend? Now, if you're first thinking about the answer in your native language and then translating it word by word into English,
Yeah.
it's going to take time, right?
Yeah.
There's going to be this like lag.
Yeah, totally. It's
Yeah.
like a mental traffic jam or something. And I mean, the other person's not going to just sit there patiently waiting for you to finish your mental translation, right?
Right. And native speakers, they just process and respond so quickly that if you're constantly like pausing and searching for words, it's going to make the whole conversation feel really like bumpy and awkward.
Awkward.
Yeah, and even a little uncomfortable for them,
And probably for you too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Like you start wondering, did they understand? Did they already move on to like a different topic in their head?
Exactly. So it's not just about like, sounding more fluent to other people. It's also about just making the whole interaction feel more natural and comfortable for everybody involved.
Right. So the real challenge then is like training your brain to just skip that translation step
Yeah.
and think in English from the get-go.
Yeah.
So how do we actually do that?
Well, Jason and Julia had some really cool techniques.
Okay.
The first one, and this might seem kind of obvious, but it's to make a real effort to stop translating in your head.
Okay, but how do you like actually do that?
Well, so they had this exercise where you basically narrate your day to yourself in English, like literally just describe what you're doing and seeing all day long.
Okay.
So for example, like if you're walking to work, instead of thinking in your native language, just try to think like, okay, I'm walking to work, the sun is shining, I see a blue car.
Okay.
Just little things like that.
Okay.
You can do this while you're cooking, cleaning, waiting in line. Just basically make it a habit to kind of like talk to yourself in English throughout the day.
Okay.
And this helps because you're creating these new neural pathways in your brain for processing information directly in English.
I really like how Julia talked about this. She called it like building a mini English world inside your head.
Yeah.
Which I think is such a cool visual.
It is.
Because it's like you're surrounding yourself with the language even when you're not actually speaking out loud.
Right.
So your brain is just getting used to processing those thoughts and observations in English automatically.
Yeah. And another technique that they talked about is something they called the 5-second rule.
Okay. So basically, whenever someone asks you a question in English, your goal is to start answering within about 5 seconds.
Oh, but 5 seconds feels like no time when you're trying to come up with an answer in another language.
I know, right?
What if you don't have the perfect words or grammar?
Well, that's actually the point. Okay. The goal here isn't about being perfect. It's about being fast.
Okay.
Like keeping the conversation flowing.
Yeah, okay.
So even if your sentence isn't like grammatically perfect or whatever, just say something.
Okay.
Okay. Because that little bit of pressure, it forces your brain to access the English you already know more quickly.
Yeah.
And the more you practice this, the faster your brain's going to become at forming those sentences under pressure.
That's a really interesting point because I think a lot of times we get so caught up in trying to sound perfect that we end up like overthinking and then we just get stuck.
Exactly.
So it's more about like training your brain to just go for it.
Right. Right.
Yeah. And the next technique is called word association.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so basically you hear a word in English and you immediately say like the first few words that come to mind that are related to that word.
Okay.
So for example, someone might say tree and you might immediately say leaves, branches, roots, you know?
Okay. Okay.
So it's all about building these like networks of related words in your mind.
Yeah.
And it helps you react to words more quickly, and it also helps you avoid overthinking your choices.
Yeah, because you're not like trying to come up with the most impressive word or anything. You're just going with your gut.
Yeah, and you can practice this with a friend or even by yourself. Just pick a random word and see how many related words you can think of.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
And then they talked about shadowing.
Yes, shadowing is great.
So that's where you listen to a native speaker saying something and you repeat it right after them.
Yeah, like immediately.
Okay.
Okay, so it's not just about like repeating the words. You're also trying to like
Yeah.
copy their pronunciation, their
Yeah.
intonation, the speed, like everything.
So it's really about mimicking.
And mimicking their style.
Yeah.
And you can use movies or YouTube videos or even podcasts for this.
Okay.
Yeah.
So basically you're training your brain to process and produce English more quickly and naturally by like really paying attention to how native speakers do it.
Exactly.
Okay. So to recap all of this, the techniques for faster thinking are first, stop translating. So narrate your day to yourself in English.
Mm-hmm.
Use that 5-second rule to kind of force yourself to respond quickly.
Yes.
Word association exercises.
Yes.
And shadowing.
Love it.
Okay. So those are for like speeding up the thinking part, but then what about the actual speaking part?
Okay, so they also had some great tips for that too.
Okay, good.
One of the things they emphasized is to really try to speak in full sentences.
Okay.
A lot of learners, they tend to give really short answers, like just 1 or 2 words,
Yeah.
which can make the conversation feel a little choppy.
Yeah, like if someone says, do you like coffee? You just say, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like it kind of shuts the conversation down a little bit.
Right, exactly. So instead of just saying yes, you could say something like, yeah, I love coffee, especially in the morning. It really helps me wake up.
Yeah, okay, so you're giving them more to work with.
Exactly.
And it gives you more practice with actually like forming sentences in English.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a win-win.
Exactly. Win-win. And another tip is to focus on using simple, common phrases.
Okay.
You know, a lot of times learners try to create these really complicated sentences, which is great, but it can actually slow you down because you're overthinking it.
Yeah.
So instead, just try to master those everyday phrases that native speakers use all the time, like, that's a good idea, I totally agree, or that makes sense.
Yeah, I feel like those are like conversational shortcuts.
Yeah, exactly.
If you got a good set of those, you can just pull them out
Yeah.
and respond quickly
Yeah.
without having to like construct every sentence from scratch.
Exactly. And it'll make you sound more natural, too.
Yes.
Okay. And then they suggested doing these think and speak exercises.
Okay.
So this is where you just look at an object or a situation around you.
Yeah.
And you just describe it out loud in English.
Okay.
Like Julie was saying, you could just look around your room right now and describe your laptop,
Okay.
your cup of tea, the sounds you hear outside, just anything.
It's kind of like forcing yourself to just come up with the words on the spot.
Yeah, like a little impromptu speaking challenge.
Yeah, I like that.
It's fun.
And then they talked about imitating native speakers, which I think is a really cool idea.
Oh, yeah, it's so effective.
So it's not just about shadowing.
Right.
It's like really trying to embody their whole way of speaking.
Yeah, their tone, their speed, their expressions, even their body language, if you're watching a video.
So you're not just learning the words, but you're learning how to deliver them
Yeah,
in a way that sounds natural and engaging.
exactly.
And for this, you can use movies, interviews,
Yeah.
YouTube videos,
Mhm.
just anything where you can really observe how native speakers are communicating.
Yeah.
And then the one that I think a lot of people might not be so thrilled about, but is actually super helpful,
Oh, yeah.
is recording yourself speaking English.
Yeah.
Because it can feel really awkward to listen to your own voice.
I know, it's so cringy.
But it's one of the best ways to identify like where you're hesitating, where your pronunciation might be off,
Yeah.
and just how fast you're actually speaking.
Yeah, it gives you that, like, objective feedback.
Right, because sometimes we think we're speaking at a certain pace, but then we listen back and it's like, oh, wow,
Yeah,
I'm way slower than I thought I was.
totally.
And it's not about being perfect in the recording. It's just about noticing those areas where you can improve.
Right.
And seeing how much progress you're making over time.
Right, it's like a little progress tracker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's just no substitute for actually having conversations in English.
Oh, yeah, that's the most important thing.
Like, all the other stuff is great, but
Yeah.
if you're not actively using the language,
Yeah.
it's not going to stick.
You got to use it or you lose it.
Yeah, so talk to friends who are also learning English. Join language exchange groups online.
Mm-hmm.
Even just talk to yourself out loud if you have to.
It all helps.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The more you practice, the more automatic it'll become.
absolutely.
Now, what about, like, common mistakes that people make that can actually slow them down?
Yeah. So Jason and Julia talked about a few of these.
Okay.
The first one, which we already mentioned, is thinking in your native language first and then translating.
Right.
That's a huge one.
It's like you're carrying this extra weight around.
Yeah.
It's just slowing you down.
And it's so unnecessary.
Yeah, so it's all about, like, training your brain to think in English directly,
Yeah,
which I know is easier said than done, but the more you practice, the easier it gets.
absolutely.
Another mistake is overthinking and trying to be perfect.
Oh, yeah. Perfectionism is the enemy of fluency.
Yeah, because you get so worried about making a mistake
Yeah.
that you end up not speaking at all.
Right. It's like you're paralyzed by fear.
Yeah, and it's important to remember that native speakers make mistakes too.
All the time.
So it's not about being perfect, it's about communicating.
And getting your message across.
Right.
Yeah.
And then there are filler words,
Oh, yeah.
like, you know,
Yeah.
like we all use them,
Yeah, of course.
but if you use them too much,
Yeah.
it can really make your speech sound choppy and hesitant.
Right. And it can make you sound less confident, too.
Yeah, so what's the solution for that?
So they had a really good tip, which is to try to pause silently instead of using a filler word.
Okay.
So if you need a second to think to it, just take a breath
Yeah.
and then continue your sentence.
So it's more about being intentional with your pauses
Yeah, exactly.
instead of just like filling the space with ums and OAs.
Right. It's like you're taking control of your speech.
And then the last mistake they talked about is not listening enough.
Okay.
Sometimes learners are so focused on speaking
Yeah.
that they forget to actually listen to what other people are saying,
Yeah.
which is a problem because you learn so much from listening to native speakers.
Right. You learn about sentence structure, pronunciation,
Yeah.
the natural rhythm of the language.
Exactly.
So it's just as important as speaking, if not more so.
Yeah, like the input that fuels the output.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
So to improve your speaking, you actually need to be a good listener.
Absolutely.
So to recap, these mistakes are thinking in your native language first, overthinking and trying to be perfect,
Yes.
overusing filler words,
Yeah.
and not listening enough.
Yeah.
And then Jason and Julia also shared some fun little interactive speed challenges that you can do to train your brain to think faster in English.
Oh, yeah. Those are fun.
So like trying to answer simple questions immediately without hesitating.
Creating a short story, using a specific word within a time limit.
Yeah.
Things like
It's a
that.
good brain workout.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's kind of like a mental game.
exactly. It's fun.
But it helps you get comfortable with that kind of like quick thinking and responding that's so important for fluency.
Yeah, it takes the pressure off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the big takeaway here is that thinking fast in English isn't just some like magical ability that some people have and some people don't.
Right.
It's actually a skill that you can develop.
Yeah, it's a muscle you can train.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And by consciously working on it through all these techniques we talked about, you can really train your brain to think and speak in English more naturally and effortlessly.
Absolutely. And don't get discouraged if you don't see results overnight.
Yeah.
Just keep practicing, you know?
Yeah, be patient with yourself.
Yeah, and be consistent, and you'll get there.
Yeah. And here's a thought to kind of leave you with. What if, like, even just for a few minutes each day, you tried to shift your internal monologue, that voice in your head, to English? Like, what would happen if you started thinking in English more often?
I think it would make a huge difference.
Yeah, it might feel a little weird at first,
Yeah,
but it could really transform your relationship with the language.
totally.
So give it a try.
Yeah, it's worth it.
See what happens.
Yeah.
And that's our deep dive for today.
Thanks for listening.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.